I got asked on our Discord server, which is linked down in the description if you want to join, together with my Twitter and Twitch, but someone asked, what is the best playstyle, passive or aggressive? And I've answered this question a lot during private coaching and a lot of individual players when I meet them, if they are, even like silvers all the way to like, the masters and the GM players. Sometimes they're like, hey, I'm a very aggressive player, I'm a very passive player, or sometimes they even want to like, hey, I want to be a more aggressive player. And they want to talk about the play style of the game, like what is actually an aggressive player, what's the traits of that, what is traits of the defensive player, and why do I always tell them that both passive and aggressive players are not the best. The best is kind of third type of playstyle. Hello, my beautiful and lovely gamers. As always, my name is Jonal. Before the video starts, I'm still a small content creator. A like on the video greatly helps out with the algorithms. Same goes for subscribing to the channel if you want to help the channel grow, and drop a comment down below if you have tips, tricks, other ways to help each other out, help new players, help veteran players, people that are stuck in different elos. If you have any tips or tricks that you learned and picked up over Overwatch, I might actually take them and put them all in a video, but at the same time, I will also heart some of the comments. If there's some great ones, some good tips, I will heart those and then make sure that they kind of get some attention in the comment section, so definitely do that, and also helps the video greatly out. Of course, again, I gotta plug this, if you wanna support the channel financially, help me out, and also at the same time rank up, improve, and get better at the game, you can hire me as your private coach. It's 50 euros for a 2-hour session. Hit me up on a Discord server, link down in that description. Now let's start by talking at what is a passive player in Overwatch. So this is where I would like to make sure that we clarify a lot of stuff. Because my problem is, a lot of time when I hear this, especially for platinum players or gold players, or people that generally, you probably met them in solo queue, people that really think that they know the game, but they don't. People that say, hey, claim space, or hey, DPS, do something, or hey, my tanks are useless, or hey, my supports are not healing, but they are hiding behind a wall, or them as a tank does not push up themselves to claim any space for the DPS, or them as the DPS is constantly dying and not really doing anything. It's the type of guys that think that they know a lot about the game, but really just say a lot of buzzwords, as such as claiming space and consistency and all these kind of terms that we heard a lot on YouTube. Now, a passive player is not what a lot of people think. Passive, for a lot of people, mean like defensive. Like in the term of, like, hey, we set up this great defense, kind of like you would envision it if it was like a military, right? Like where you have bunkers and people sitting across, right? That's what a lot of people think when they're thinking like defensive. But that's not like what defensive means in Overwatch, and I have a really great example on this here on Havana. So on Havana, a defensive team might, and this is like no joke, might like start out their defensive setup like way over here, right? Like here. That's kind of where they want their defensive setup, right? So they kind of want, some tank over here. Let's just say, just to kind of amuse the situation, right? They might want something like, they want like an Orisa Sigma, and then they, they might want, let's say, a soldier for healing, and they, and maybe they want like, let's say, just a Torbjorn as well, right? You get the turret, you get, some sustain with the molten core, right? You pick up, something like a Baptiste, and maybe, let's say an Ana, right? Like something like this, right? And then they want to set up like super far back here where they have like, they have, they can shield, here, and then they can Orisa shield here, and then, they have like a, a turret somewhere that's doing some damage and being annoying, right? And you kind of get the gist, right? So they're setting up this super far back. And here's the issue. Defensive in Overwatch is not this. This is not a defensive playstyle for a team. And it's not a very good defensive strategy, because what you have done is that you have given the entire enemy team control over this part, right? If your team is stationed here, or the enemy team is stationed here, right? Your team has control over majority of the front, majority of this part of the map. Also, they can off angle from behind them, right? They can, this team, which I will represent by just a Rhine, can very quickly get encircled by people taking these positions here. By people taking these positions here, right? And they can, they can even send, people to path through here if they have like a tracer to start like pressuring, right? They can very quickly get surrounded, and because they are not playing a position that has very good natural cover, right? The defensive plan might be tanks fall back here, and backline supports fall back here, when you can already see how this is being bad. One, you're splitting your team up in two, as well as if the squishies like the DPS and the DPSs and the supports won't really have any angles to play from. So if you also had DPSs back here, right, then they have this angle, or they have this angle that they can kind of peek without getting blasted from all of this. And the tanks can, again, now get swamped together with the supports as well, right? So it's so easy to drain their resources if they put up their Orisa shield and their Sigma shield and blah, 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 blah. The defensive team can just play here. They can play the cart, which I don't have spawned in on this round. So they can play the cart, right? And they can just break their shields. And then the defensive team is forced to kind of go in here. The supports will have to hide. Let's say they hide in the same spot to stay strong. And now, you can just play the cart. And you can keep off-angling on the tanks, constantly forcing out shields, forcing out health, forcing out abilities, while you just slowly but surely trickling the card, forcing them to kind of run to the objective, trying to contest it. And at that point, the team that's putting the card, have all the angles in the world to just obliterate them from every angle. And there's no way you can shield that. There's no way you can shoot all those angles. You are already low on resources because you've been pushed into a corner and slowly but surely drained from your resources. And because of that, if you play this way, as a lot of people envision as defensive, you will lose games. Now, the other version is aggressive. When people speak about aggressive, they mean they're really just getting in their faces. When I hear passive, I normally hear inactive. That's normally what I hear. People that want to, as we just previously discussed, really just stand far back, put up some shields, and then slowly but surely not have any control over the map. They have no angles, they have no control over it, there's no space that's nice for the opposing side. The opposing side can walk around the map and do whatever the fuck they want, and the defensive team can't really do anything about it. When I hear aggressive, a lot of time I hear cocky or almost stupid. It's less of aggressive as you think a SWAT team that kicks down the door and is aggressive in that way, throwing flashes, all that kind of stuff, and more like a bumbling Goliath that kind of just charges head first in towards a well-trained martial artist and gets his ass whooped, right? That's more what I hear when I hear aggressive. And here's a good example as well. King's Row first point. What do a lot of people in the lower eros like to do? They like to hold this first choke point here, right? Because at that point you're literally minimizing as the defensive team. You are playing so aggressive that you're literally stopping them for pushing any way further than what you could consider a natural barrier, right? So something like this, right? You put your Ryan up here, you put your Sari up here, you have all your players, and everyone's just supposed to play this choke. A lot of time, we see something like this where they want maybe a soldier, maybe up here somewhere, he can alternate here and then drop down there and rotate. Even potentially drop the statue if he wants to do that for some reason, right? We're talking something like this. Maybe you're even really cocky and you have a Genji or a Tracer that's off-angling on Hotel, right? We're talking something like this. And what is the issue with this? Because you will see some high elo scrims if you ever been to either as a VOD reviewer or as a coach, or for some reason you've seen a tier 3, a high elo tier 3, or even the people that are bordering to tier 2, you will see on King's Row, especially you would like to see before, or in previous patches you've seen this before. People start up here, not with a DPS lineup like this a lot of time, but you have your tanks up here in the beginning. The issue is what you see a lot is people hold this forever. Their tanks fight for this spot. And why isn't that very good? Because if you notice what happens compared to the defensive team, right? When we saw the passive team or the real defensive team, we saw that they had no control over the map, right? They had, the enemy team could walk where the fuck they wanted, and just surround them and just slowly drain them from resources. And the defensive team at that point had some areas to retreat to, but that was such a little control of the map that the enemy could just swarm them and keep draining them from resources as they push the payload. Here we see something very similar. What is the defensive team supposed to do when once again the offensive team here, with their tank line and whatever starts, I'll make these guys blue, starts pressuring them and starts making this Ryan low. What happens if this Ryan fucks up a trade? What happens again when, for example, if you start implementing spam into this, or you start applying a lot of pressure from under here, or pushing through the choke with good bubble management? For example, let's say that the Zarya, the Ryan goes here for a trade, he bubbles his Ryan for the trade, this Ryan just backs up and get healed, and then the Ryan goes back around the corner. what happens now is that this Rhine knows that, oh, no bubble. Let's just run into them. And that's exactly what they want to do. They're just going to run in. Now you might talk about, what about these guys? And these guys can very easily get pressured, because while a front line with a Ryan Saria that has bubble advantage can just run into them, take two, 3 swings from his Ryan while trading, right? So you can imagine that this Ryan is essentially trading about 250 damage, right? 2 hammer swings and a fire strike for free because he's bubbled, right, into this Ryan. So this Ryan will be heavily under in health, which draws a lot of attention from healers. And therefore, if these guys get pressured in any way, sense, or form by a hit scan, by a DPS, by a support in any way, will be forced to burn a lot of resources. Now, again, if you have really good, really good, DPSs, then they might be able to duel from that. But worst case scenario is that this Ryan has to back off, and it happens either one or two ways. Either these guys are not an issue, or there is no DPS problem in this scenario, and then this Ryan just get run down, and there's not much he can do. He can try to kite, but there's no escaping. If you look at how the map is laid out, there's no way for this Ryan to flee. He can't. Like this is the closest area for a rest point, because everywhere their Ryan kites, my Ryan can just follow. And if you notice how this Chaos King's row is, let's say that he goes around this corner here, my Ryan turns, and we can have direct LOS on our Ryan as well. So there's no way of splitting us. If you think something like this choke point here instead, which I can remove, right? If their Ryan stands here and my Ryan, or let's say he stands here and my Ryan pushes him, right? Then a lot of times there's DPSs that have some LOS here, and then it's difficult for my Ana to stand here and heal him, right? It's difficult, I can push him, but my tanks will lose LOS to his supports and DPS. It's not here. If their Ryan stands there and my Ryan, so I can do that, if their Ryan stands here and my Ryan pushes them up, right? Then I can still have supports easily positioned here to heal my guys, or here, right? And it only happens that break of LOS, right, where my supports might be uncomfortable with how they're positioned, right, where they might have to go out to the point. It's when you start putting players inside their house that needs to be chased, right? Then we're starting to talk that I need to push my supports up to here, which is kind of dangerous for them, right? So an aggressive team a lot of time captures a lot of space, but has no way to fall back. If they lose a trade or anything like that, then it's just detrimental to them, and a lot of time it does not bring them any success. So let's look at how I personally think that it is a great way to play the game effectively. I think a really good example of a good playstyle that you should be looking for is a hybrid. So normally, again, you don't want to be so defensive that you don't have any space, but you don't want to be so aggressive that you're claiming everything with no way of playing defensively, essentially with no way of falling back, restoring, right? You want to, when you're playing defensive, to force the opponents to run after you so you can constantly kite them, right? You want it to be costly for the attacking side or whoever is pushing to push you. At the same time, you want it to be very cheap for you to retaliate. So, for example, allowing them to, let's say, for example, letting the opposing team push up, lose a lot of resources, run through here and start their engage, and then engage them, right, where they have lost, they have been pushing through a door, they might get hit by a huge fire strike, right, they have been losing resources as they push, you have been saving a lot of yours, and then as they come out here, then you go on the offensive, meaning instead of running away now, instead of backing up to here, or even, rotating over here and putting up a shield and trying to secure your objective, you rather want to then re-engage that push. That is normally what is prioritized as a good playstyle. You want to fight for space. You want to claim space aggressively, meaning you don't want the opposing side to have this high ground. You don't want them to have powerful position over you where you are pushing in to something that will look, let's say something like this. Let's say there's a defensive, that's a great Ryan. So let's just say a defensive Ryan. I can even get the capture point online. There we go. Right, so, for example, a good defensive side would look like something like this, where the Ryan might start up here, he might, send a fire strike, right? You might have some DPSs that are, right, again, Ryan is just a symbol for their entire team, their main group, right? So you might start up here, unless there's people that, need high ground, let's say you had a soldier, just again as an example, because we can all envision what a soldier can do alone on a high ground, right? If he has some setup time, then you would let him just play up here and do his things. Maybe he could get a shot off or something with a helix. Besides that, as these guys are pushing up, you want, to bombard them as much as possible. But as soon as, like, they start to push up to an area like this, and you recognize, right, okay, no fallback point, right? Like, I can hide behind here, but they can just, like, run around and take me, right? I can run back to statue, but again, they can just keep pushing. Or I can fall back to here, but they can, again, just keep pushing without me having, like, so my fallback point is, like, here. Maybe inside here, or, like, maybe all the way over there. Right? That's, like, good position for me to stop and get rest as my team. Or as a main tank. And again, remember that the main tank kind of like is a good way, especially in these theoretical discussions, to kind of visualize like a front line, right? So, and where your front line would be set. So when, you have a Ryan up here, he's positioned up here, he does a bunch of trade, they start pushing up, then he wants to start fall back, but he's not like falling back to this position immediately. A lot of time. Depending on what you're playing against, during Goach, it was very common to just start here, because it was so easy for the opponent to rush you early, right? But then he might play here now, right? And then, as the opposing side is kind of pushing in, then he's playing up here and he's doing his stuff. And as they are kind of like starting to move up, then once again, he will start giving some space. And so on and so forth, right? And the opposing side will start pushing, he will start giving a little bit of space, and make sure that, like, when these guys are trying to push up here, let's say that, for example, if it would look something like this, then he has a great position to play from. Even especially like if we add something like he had maybe a McCree that was kind of playing behind him. He had a Sen that could get a pretty like nasty angle like further back, right? Getting a Discord on them, right? Something like this, right? Where they're gonna get hit from like multiple. They're gonna be hit from multiple angles, something like this, right? Where there are just a lot of angles, including a Discord here, where it is very expensive for their Ryan to push, right? One, he's getting hammered, and his team can get hammered from the soldier on the high ground, right? Let's just say that the soldier had a mercy pocket in this example, just to kind of get more pieces on the board, right? You might even, do something like this, either have a Sigma, or especially in this case, just in be running very old school comps, you might have a Saria that might even be off angling even more, right? Making it super expensive for this Ryan to push in, right? Like, he can't extend in, his team is exposed, right? If you had an Ana here, then you can just collapse on the Ana, right? So you have this incredibly expensive setup. So even if your Ryan somehow lost the trade, he would fall back, and it would just be pushing into the Kree and the Sen, and he would just keep getting nuked and nuked and nuked, and an extended find for the attacking side would be devastating. Like, it would be a complete loss. You would constantly lose health, you would constantly lose shield, and this Ryan can always just go to here, get healed up a little bit, right? The Mercy can glide in and pocket him or something like that, and the Ryan will be caught out in this really, really poor position where he had no restoration point, right? There was no point where he could just like go and hide and quickly get to a physical object to heal himself, right? And to restore his shield. He would just lose that extended fight, and that would be a really good like way of playing defensively. At the same time, you want to be able to be aggressive, right? You want to do stuff like take the high ground here, if it's unoccupied and if you can, right? You want to do stuff like, for example, as this Ryan is moving up and you do some trading, that you face him here. So he's not allowed to just walk onto the objective and do that. You are forced to play like this. Because what happens now, right, is that these guys are all funnel into a choke point. I am allowed to establish far greater presence stuff like over here because, for example, I moved my Saria, right? My Ryan cannot get over here and swing. My Saria cannot stand here and take this space. So, as an offensive team, I'm allowed to put players here easily, right? I'm allowed to start challenging this high ground because I'm not scared that, like, if for some reason I put my McCree here as an offensive team, right, to somehow shoot up at these guys, right? I'm not scared that there's a Saria here to just beam me. That can just push me. I'm not scared that anything like that would happen. Because my Ryan is just here acting as a buffer. He can be aggressive if that's something that we feel. If not, then he will be here and he will swing his hammer and he will make some noise and he will be annoying. And, you will have some pressure on the tank line to make sure these guys don't just run down my tank, right? But besides that, I'm just harassing these guys. So these guys get low, they kind of back off a little bit. Then Orion does some trading, right, with his team. These guys re-peak, and we repeat the process. Potentially even, you know, if you have D.Va or some other tank, right, like a ball or whatever, then you might even, you know, start putting these guys, you know, up on the high ground to make the soldier, you know, lose that part of the map. So again, once again, you can just start establishing more players on the objective. Doing that, the defensive team are now the offensive team that has to, like, all of a sudden start pushing into, you know, something that looks very scary, to add a Zenyatta to this picture, right? Like, let's say that he was, like, maybe not exactly there, because that might be a little bit risky, but let's just put him here, right? Where all of a sudden this Ryan needs to extend, and you have, you know, a McCree that's playing here, kind of harassing and being nice and defensive. You know, you have a D.Va that's off-angling hard over here, who can also fly up, so if the Mercy leaves, the soldier can get screwed a little bit, right? And he can kind of be kept at bay, but be kept low, right? And then, you know, you have all of this crossfire set up for a potential retake, where you are pushing in, you can't shield all of these angles, you can't deal with all of these angles, and all of a sudden you're struggling. So you want to fight for space. Even whatever team you're doing, you want to kind of be aggressive in the way that you want to fight for space. You want to claim it, right? And not to, you know, unheard strategy for a lot of teams, you know, where there was like a heavy set, where there was like DPS players up here. You know, if you weren't going type tanks, was actually to run over here and just speed over and just take it. Like, literally put tanks here, forcing the DPS player either, you know, way further back, or even forcing them to drop from time to time. Like, sometimes, you know, you would chase them, right? And in that way, restoring them, like, they would drop from high ground, you would heal up, and now you could actually start the game properly by, you know, being that aggressive in claiming the space. And that's the important part. If you wonder what's best, like aggressive or passive, the best is a hybrid. If you win the team fight, and this is something that you see every single time, if anyone made it to this far, type I need healing in the comment section. I will know that you watched this far, and I will heart the comments, because you will get like the best information ever. If you played in high elo, you already know this. If not, then this is facts for a lot of people. In professional play and in really high play, like when I worked in contenders, and even, you know, in the higher ends of tier 3 and so like that, you know, we're talking, you know, the higher ends of GM. They are very, very aggressive when they win the fight. If you won the fight, let's say you were playing the defensive team here, right? You were the defensive team, and you killed the Orion, which a lot of time, especially doing goats and stuff like that, meant that you won that fight. You got like 1-2 picks, right? Like, you're winning this fight. What you see a lot of teams do, especially in solo queues, you know, okay, you know, there's some guy over here and some guy over there, you know, we're not gonna, you know, they are backing out. Okay, sure. What you see in higher elos is, oh, there's like still people alive, so they will run them down into spawn if they have to. Like, they will stop like here if they feel that it's unsafe, to run every single player down, kill them, get ult charge, put them in staggers, and then kite back. And then one again, what will they do? They will stand out here, you will leave the spawn, they will get a fire strike, they will kite to here, they will do more damage, they will kite to here, they will do more damage, then they will start putting them up at their proper defensive position, and start like really fighting, you know, for space here, and, you know, fighting for the objective against the opposition side. And they would repeat that process, forcing them, being really aggressive, claiming a lot of space, making the opposition side fight for that space, and then repeating, making a push into a really strong defensive setup. Immediately they would lose that. And if you wonder how you do that as an offensive team, it's incredibly similar, right? If you're the offensive team, if you can claim a lot of space, right, you can have this like power setup, right? Like, you can get, again, just because it's such a good analogy, because everybody can kind of see it, you can get your Mercy soldier duo, right, up on the high ground, right? Which again, we can argue about how effective it is, whatever, right? Just because it's a powerful visual, right? Like, what happens if this soldier doesn't get dealt with, right? Let's say you're playing against team. If you can get your team up there, right? Up here or over here or whatever, a lot of time up there if you're attacking the defensive team, right? And you can put your tanks on the point, right? And let's say that you're setting up, you know, again, you have like a Zenyatta here, and you have your fucking Ana playing like way over here, right? Trying to land, you know, a nade from an angle, right? You play this. Now who is the defenders, right? Like, the opposing side now has to push in here with a soldier, you know, spamming bullets from, you know, all kinds of high grounds, with the Zenyatta free firing from here, getting some discord, and the Ana looking for aggressive nades and sleeps, right? While everyone is supporting each other. So you can claim a lot of space in the offensive team, harass the opposing team back, and then just play the objective. And they are forced to contest you. Maybe not at, and this is something that high elo teams do, maybe not at the first tick, maybe not at the second tick, but at the third tick, they have to contest you. So as long as you're just draining their resources, you're bumping down the shields, you're focusing down the health, you're focusing on abilities, they are no way they can push in. They don't have health, they don't have shields, you're losing too much health, you're bleeding, your tanks are bleeding too much, it's taking too much damage and bleeding too much for your supports to keep up. You're burning your nades, you're burning your bubbles, you're burning your matrixes, whatever you're calling it. You're burning all your resources trying to keep people alive before the fight starts. And you have such a stranglehold over this objective with so much crossfire that's supported by each other. There's no way you're pushing in on this. And the job of the defensive team is to make sure that does not happen and to make sure that they can do that on your team, right? And a lot of time that would be something, you know, for example, having a guy that can roam through here to attack Diana, right? Making sure that this does not happen, that they can't just take that high ground from you. And if they do, potentially making sure that, okay, they are rotating here, let's aggressively make sure that the tanks never make it to point. Let's understand that 2 people are out, they are low on healing, let's push really aggressively and force these guys, you know, force the red team, you know, way fucking back. Let's not allow them to do that, right? And then we can rather start, you know, harassing and keeping these 2 at bay, while, again, now they're down 2, we can, like, put 1 player harassing, constantly bullying these guys. At the same time, the rest of us can bully this team, and then these guys need to be really in sync to be able to do anything, which is very difficult to pull off, right? So that is the best playstyle. You win then, you know, if you get a pick, then what do? You don't deal with these fuckers, right? If it's possible, then you fuck up these guys. You get a couple of more kills, the Sen might get out, and then you deal with these guys, and then you kill them. And then you make sure that you have a good setup on your next round. You set up here in the spawn point, right? You send the fire strike at the choke, you fight here, you fight here. You have your setup on the high ground. You have your crossfire setup. You're playing. People are getting bullets through hotel, right? They might even look for an opportunity to push a couple of people, like a high-end Gissaria through the hotel, just to stand here and deal some damage to that backline, so that, again, the backline is slow, don't have resources, so you can push in here aggressively as well, right? But if not, you know, then you're playing your defensive setup. You know, you are potentially even you're having a couple people here, having some people flank through there, and then you're kind of pinchering the defensive side by chasing away some of their players to back of statue, isolating their tanks in the front line. I hope you kind of get the gist of it. That is the best playstyle in Overwatch, in my opinion. It's not these, like, stupidly passive stuff that low people think, or these overly aggressive stuff where you're just kind of throwing shit at the wall and hoping that opposition side does not understand that they can just play it smart and win. It's about this. It's about, you know, balancing, having an incredibly good setup for yourself, pushing your advantages, and then having, you know, these fallback points, these safety mechanisms to make sure that you are safe in that way. For them not to do the same to you, to set up to that high ground, to surround you, to drain your resources. And that's the battle that is so important to be able to manage. And that is what high elo Overwatch is all about. If you like this video, it took me some time to make. Please like, comment, subscribe if you made it all this way. Again, I need healing at that point would be, you know, a good indicator. But if not, Bobcat, type that in the comment section, then I know who's the real OGs who make it to the fucking what is it, like a 30-minute video or something like that. If you like this type of stuff, sharing it around on like Reddit and other stuff is greatly appreciated to hopefully get some knowledge from a washed up tier 2 coach out there. I really want to kind of share what I've learned in my time in Overwatch, as I know that a lot of people can have use for that and can hopefully enjoy that and make the game more enjoyable for other people. And again, educating, these kind of educational videos rarely get any views. So again, helping share those around, making it worthwhile for me is greatly appreciated, the same way that we kind of get to help out as many people as possible. Thank you guys so much for the amazing support. As always, please do take care of yourself and stay positive. Wash your hands. I know the vaccines are right around the corner, guys. So just, you know, stay strong a little bit longer, keep out a little bit longer, and, you know, we got this as a group. It's important that you take care of others, but also remember to do take care of yourself. Tell somebody that you love them. As you guys in the next one. As always, my name has been Jonal, and as always, keep the enemy in your crosshair.